Let's talk about these three beautiful palettes. I'm so excited to be finally showing these to you. I've had these for a couple weeks now, and the color stories are just so beautiful. Two of the palettes are from Kryptein Cosmetics, and one of them is from Shellwe Makeup. So let's take a look at them one by one. So first up, I'm going to talk about the Kryptein palettes. Kryptein Cosmetics is a new brand in 2024 they just launched, and the very first palette was the Burnt Forest palette, and I do have a dedicated video on that one. I was very excited to see them coming out with some more products, and I did receive all three palettes in PR, and I do have an affiliate code with Shellwe Makeup and then a non-affiliate code with Kryptein Cosmetics, which will be in the description box as well as on the screen. So the first palette is the Violet Crazy palette, and this is a violet color story, but we also have a darker, grungier matte shadow in here, so it's not completely monochromatic. There's also a pink to green duochrome in here and a yellow, so it's got a couple little pops in here, and the shimmers are so beautiful. I will be showing you detailed swatches of each of the shimmer shades, but I will not be doing comparison swatches. But if there's something that you would like to see compared, then definitely leave me a comment below or send me a DM on Instagram, and I can put the comparisons up on my IG stories. The second palette from Kryptein Cosmetics is the Atlantis palette, Love Blue eyeshadow, and this multi-chrome is so shifty. Wait till you see it in action. And so I really love the color stories of both of the palettes. I think they have a nice balance of not being too monochromatic, but also keeping with the theme or the name of the palette. And then lastly is the Summer Garden palette from Shellwe Makeup. They do offer their palettes in a full size with round 26mm pans, but they also have a little mini which has rectangular longer pans. So I will be using the smaller palette, and this palette is a collaboration between Shellwe Makeup and the content creator Freya on Instagram. I will link their profile below. This color story is so grungy and I love it. I love the amount of depth in here, and the shimmers are just so special. They have a little bit extra going on for them, so they have a bunch of flex throughout them, which makes them super dimensional, and they're shifty. And the look I'm wearing I did with this palette, and the other product in this collection is the Matte Duo Cheek and Lip Mud called Wisteria, and I'm wearing the plum shade on my lips. It's basically like the Kaleidos lip glaze, but in a more solid form. And congratulations to Shellwe and Freya on this beautiful collab. So I will be doing one look with each of the palettes. Before that, I will be showing you detailed swatches of all of the shimmer shades, and then at the end of the video I'll give you some of my first impression thoughts on all the palettes. So let's get right into it. Here are the four shimmer shades from the Summer Garden palette. Definitely two multi-chromes, this one and this one. This one is the flaky shade. As you can see, it does smooth out a little bit, and then this one's already pretty smooth, and this one has a bunch of different sparkles throughout it. So I'm just gonna swatch all of them on the back of my hand at the same time. These are all super smooth. This one does feel a little bit thicker, and then this one also very smooth. These two have a very similar texture. You can definitely see the different sparkles throughout this one. It's so magical. There's maybe a little bit of a shift in this one. This one also has different colors throughout it. I see green and pink flecks with a gray silver shine to it. In this one I see pink and green flecks throughout. And I've definitely seen a similar kind of multi-chrome before. It's more like a black-based multi-chrome. This shade is a charcoal with blue and pink and silver throughout it. And this one does feel, as I mentioned, a little bit more flaky and a little bit thicker to the touch. And then this last shade is so cool. It's a pinky red with blue flecks throughout it. Very dimensional. And it does have a shift as well. So it's not just a multi-chrome, it's got that dimensionality. Onto the Violet Crazy palette. We've got Fairy Tale, Fallen Star, and Time Machine. And these all have a little bit more texture to them, especially Time Machine and Fairy Tale are pretty flaky. Fallen Star is a little bit less flaky, but they do seem like they're going to definitely smooth out and they'll be really sparkly. This shade is so interesting. Really excited to swatch that one out. This one is very opaque. This one feels a little similar to some of the Minka shades from the Adept palette, but not as flaky, but it does have a little bit of grittiness to it, and it is a little bit more on the emollient side. So is this shade right here. This is not just an iridescent shade. It has blue flecks throughout it while being like a really bright neon cobalt blue and shifting to pink to purple. This one is maybe a little bit more like a duochrome, and then this is just a really beautiful, very sparkly, opaque, warm tone, slightly rose gold shade. Here's a close-up so you can really see the different flecks throughout that one. Next three shades, the One, Blossom, and Violet Crazy. These all feel very smooth. They don't feel squishy in the pan. And they are just so sparkly and very shifty as well. Definitely look like they're going to be quite smooth. Oh yeah, for sure. Very shiny. And a little bit goes a long way, especially with this shade. I mean, this one I didn't even dip back in, and I feel like I could keep going. This one is a pink reflect with a teal base shifting to green, a little bit of an orange in between. And then this one has a bit of dimensionality to it, so it doesn't necessarily shift, different sparkles throughout it. And this bottom shade is also multi-chrome. And then here's a close-up to show you all the different flecks throughout this one. It almost seems like it is holographic. I wasn't 100% sure, but it does have so many sparkles throughout it. Onto the Atlantis palette, Jellyfish, Deluge, and Siren. Siren is a very squishy in the pan, almost putty-like. Deluge has a little bit of softness in the pan, and so does Jellyfish. All three of these look a little flaky. They do seem to smooth out. Okay, this one feels a little bit more putty-like now that I'm actually swatching it out. And then this one for sure. So yeah, these two shades are a bit putty-like. Really vibrant blue-green, flash straight on. Siren is really, really shifty. It's got a cool toned plum base with orangey gold reflex straight on and some green shift in there as well. And these are the last three shades. So this is Oli Hakan, Poseidon, and Mermaid. And these have just maybe a little bit of a flaky texture to them, but they're very, very shiny, very opaque, and have quite a bit of sparkle, and they look like they're for sure going to smooth out. Oh yeah, definitely. And none of these feel squishy or anything like that, or too putty-like. Maybe this one, now that I'm actually swatching it, does feel a little bit slippy. So this is a dark gray, but it is pretty bright straight on, especially with the lighting, but you can really see the dark gray more on an angle. And then this is a denim blue shifting to purple, and it does have a darker, almost black base to it. So does this one right here. This one's quite pink, but like a darker pink straight on, and it shifts to orange to green. Using the Atlantis palette, picked up Coral, and I'm gonna put that onto the outer corner and a little bit onto my lash line, and just blend it outwards. And that is such a nice pastel. And then I'm gonna take Aquaman on the center of my crease, and I'm gonna just blend whatever is left into the inner crease, but I really just want it to be concentrated in the center of my crease. Taking the Rephr 13 mini, I'm picking up Stone, and I'm just gonna deepen out this outer corner. And I want to work very slowly because I don't want this to just go out too far. I definitely have a tendency of doing that, so I want to keep it very controlled and just kind of dipping back and forth and slowly adding on as I feel like I want more. And then picking up a little bit of Coral on that brush and just feathering that in there. So just added a little bit of depth, just like really strategically onto the lid mostly. Picked up Siren, and it is a little bit flaky, and I misted it with water hoping to help spread it on my lid, and definitely feel like it's helping, and it's smoothing out completely. And I haven't swatched this palette yet as I'm applying these, so I feel like from the way it applied I can tell that it might be a little squishy in the pan and the way that it picked up. And then taking the same brush, taking Jellyfish, also seems a little bit flaky, but let's just see how that, oh, that actually applies pretty well. However, I definitely see a little bit of fallout, so should have definitely misted it. Ooh, those two together is such a pretty combination. And I'm just kind of smoothing it out with the brush now. Oh, that is such a pretty combo. And I'm just going to use this brush and brush outwards to hopefully push the particles up so that they don't flatten up against my skin. Here's the first finished look. Dipping into the Violet Crazy palette, taking the 13 mini from Rephr again, and I'm taking Midnight, and I'm going to put it on an angle and just blend it outwards like a super smoky thick wing. And I'm really just trying to kind of map it out first. And then I'm going to add a little bit more, but I'm going to go in with a smaller brush, more Midnight. And I'm just going to now focus that along my lash line and just building that depth out there. I do have a little bit of fallout over here, I can see. And I'm going to connect my lower lash line. I do feel my eyes start to water. For some reason lately, now that it's getting colder out, my left eye always seems to just randomly start watering, but not my right eye, it's just my left eye. And I'm just adding more and just really smoking it out. Taking Affectionate, and I'm gonna put that into the crease right above it. Picked up Blossom, which is nice and smooth, and it does look like it might have some hollow in it, but I'm unsure yet. I haven't swatched this palette either before using it, and I did miss my brush just a little bit. And I'm gonna keep this, okay, yeah, I definitely think I see some hollow in here. I'm gonna keep this really low to my lash line because it is a darker shade. Picked up Fairy Tale. This one is a little bit flaky, so it's kind of picking up a little unevenly. So we'll see how that actually applies. I did miss my brush again. I definitely think this is a shade I want to use with my fingers. So I'm just picking up the tiniest bit on my pinky, and I'm just gonna swoop that up into my crease. Ooh, this is such an interesting iridescent shade because it has a bunch of different colors throughout it. Like I see purple and pink in there, but they don't look like evenly dispersed. It's kind of like very dimensional. So pretty. I think I'm gonna go back in with a little bit more Midnight on this outer corner just to bring back some of that depth since I put on the shimmer. Picked up a little bit of Fallen Star. I'm gonna put that on the inner corner. Here's the second finished look. Using the Somber Garden now, and I'm going to be using the mini palette, which is so adorable. And also, like, look at the shift. Oh my god, it literally looks like liquid chrome in the pan. So I'm going to be using the plum shade first, and I'm going to be blending it out with this grayish blue, like washed out jeans essentially shade. I'm going to be putting this one in the center of my crease, and then in the center of my lid I'm going to use this shimmer shade, and then in my lower lash line right in the center I'm going to use this shade. So I'm going to first just tap that onto the outer corner, and I'm putting it onto my lid so I have room to blend out and add the other shade, and I'm going to put it into the inner lid, and then I'm just going to wipe off the same brush, and I'm going to pick up that gray shade, and that's just going to go on the edges of the here, and I'm just going to blend it outwards. I do have a little bit of fallout, but that should be fine, and then I'm going to put it in here. I did take it a little too far in on the other eye, unfortunately. I kind of was just winging it and I didn't have a look in mind. And then I was like, oh yeah, I want to do this kind of look. So I'm going to bring it a little bit further in here. I'm going to take a little bit more of this plum shade. And I'm just going to pick up the tiniest amount of that shade and put it under the inner corner of my lower lash line. Like literally just right up against my lash line. And then taking the gray and just really trying to keep it not going too far down. And then I'm just taking some setting powder on a cleanish blending brush, and I'm just going over the edges in here, down here, and then taking this shade in the center, which is actually going to really match with the shimmer shade because the shimmer shade has this interesting color in it, and it is so cool. So next I'm taking that shimmer I mentioned, which is what this one looks like. It is so dimensional. It has just so many different flecks throughout it. Very, very beautiful shade. In general, all of these shades have just so much going on in them. They're really, really special. I don't even know what I would compare these to, honestly, because they have just so many flecks throughout them. But this shade especially is very, very unique. It's not like the most metallic. Picked up that reddish shimmer shade, and I missed in my brush just to help it glide a little bit and avoid too much fallout. And this one also has a bunch of flecks throughout it, so I'm just popping that underneath the lower lash line down here. And here's the finished look. So first I'm going to talk about the Somber Garden palette. I love this look. As I mentioned, I love the tones in here. I think there's quite a variety of different looks you could create. The mattes layered and blended well together. I've only done one look, but I feel like these mattes feel different from their Miss Witch palette. I wasn't really a huge fan of the mattes in there. They were just very powdery and they didn't really mesh well together, but these are so nice. They're very pigmented. This shade is the flakiest shade out of all the shimmers in here. It does feel a little squishy as well, but it does smooth out. But something to definitely keep in mind if you have hooded oily lids, these two are super smooth, just very metallic and shifty, but they have different flex throughout them as well, so it just adds on to the dimensionality. And then the shade also has a bunch of different flex throughout it, and it just is so dimensional. It's not necessarily shifty. It does feel a little bit different from the other two. I would call these two like different formulas, so it feels a little bit more thicker to the touch, but not in like a squishy emollient kind of way. It just has a little bit more tug, and it's not as shiny metallic as these two shades especially. It's a very unique and interesting shade. I don't have anything like it, and I'm so glad to have this palette. I really enjoyed using it, and the color story really inspires me, so I can't wait to use it again and create a totally different look and use some of the other shimmers. Onto the Kryptein palettes. First, I'm going to talk about the Violet Crazy palette. Of course, keeping in mind I haven't used all the shades, but so far I didn't run into any issues in the look that I did create. Formed really nicely and they blended together really nicely, so I do want to try out some of the other shades that I haven't yet to just test it out even further. As for the shimmers, some of them do feel a little squishy and a little bit more emollient, so I will have to try those out further. I think there's a nice variety of the different shimmer shades. Not all of them are shifty, so I like the different variety. You're getting a little bit of everything. You're getting some multi-chromes, you're getting some really beautiful high shine metallic shimmers like this one right up here, which I love this addition in here. It's a really nice neutral shimmer to have in here, so you can create some more kind of everyday types of looks, of course depending on what you consider an everyday kind of look. And I can't wait to use the one. This kind of shade is just, I'm such a sucker for these kinds of shades. I just want to be surrounded by those shades. I just love the contrast of the green and the pink, or like an orange and a pink depending. Onto the Atlantis palette. I really love the deeper mattes down here. I think they add a lot of interest and versatility to the color story, so I just overall really love the selection of all the mattes and the shimmers between all three palettes. Siren is just something else. It is a little bit on the squishy side though. The shimmers are just so shiny. Some of them are a little bit more sparkly than others, and they do look a little bit textured in the pan, but they do completely smooth out. Overall, I'm really enjoying all three of the palettes. Some really beautiful color stories, and it's going to be very hard to do my best color stories of 2024 video, where I'm going to be talking about specifically palettes that have launched since June or July. I believe I did my previous video up until that point, so I'm going to be doing another one with the palettes that have launched after I did that video, and it's going to be very difficult. I might have to expand it to show a few more palettes. There's just been so many beautiful color stories. I mean, indie brands in general just really know what they're doing. Let me know which look was your favorite, and if you picked any of these palettes up, I would love to hear your thoughts. And that's everything for this video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, and thank you so much for watching. I hope to see you next time.